Hi Martha, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
And Carla's here too.
Yes.
Okay. Calling the meeting over, it is 10:03. First item of the agenda is the minutes of the previous meetings. And I think we have two of them here. One of them's on the, but first let's deal with September 6th meeting minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, deletions, additions to the minutes that anybody would like to bring up?
Nothing from me.
I think it's our shortest ever.
Okay,
John, on the
Yeah.
people present, Bud is listed as retired. I guess I was just wondering if that should be certified public accountant member.
We have.
well, as long as
updated
he's
that
still
in-
licensed.
I am still licensed, including I renewed my license for 23, so not as retired as a CPA. So
Yes, we have updated that on the website and other places. This must be one of the places we missed. We will surely update that.
Okay. Thank you.
thanks,
Okay.
Peter.
I will then entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand in the picture.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, it is passed, and I believe we have the minutes for the special meeting in August or July, is that it? Or am I incorrect?
But there were July minutes.
Excuse me?
I thought I saw July minutes.
There's July minutes. For some reason, we did not address those last meeting. I
What
had
date
no-
was that? That was prior to my
was-
taking the position, so I can note that in the minutes, please.
Okay, just one moment.
Looks like it was July 5th.
Yeah, I will be very glad when we're back in person, because going back and forth between documents on a PC is not fun. So yeah, July 5th, meeting minutes, they were sent out in advance.
John, the September minutes indicate we approved the minutes of July 5th.
Okay. My error,
Okay.
my error. Okay. I'm going to suggest that we add a couple of items to the agenda at this point at the end. One, to have a comments and concerns of any person present today towards the end of the meeting, so that if we have anybody in that wishes to comment on things that have been there as opposed to in advance, we also allow that. And also an unenumerated new business item. I particularly want that because I'd like to leave some comments on the NASBA national meeting and what was covered in that meeting, especially in relation to what we can see coming down the road. And since I can't make motions, if anybody would care to so move, we'll amend the agenda and add those items.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add those items.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Okay, I'll make it. Anybody opposed? Okay.
Hey, John, one other just minor editorial item on the agenda itself.
Yes.
It's dated November 8th, but the first intro sentence talks about the meeting being held on November 6th. You know, I just correct that, just a
Okay,
minor.
yeah, if we can correct that, you're right.
That has been,
oh, no.
just let you
Is
know,
that-
that has been corrected.
Okay,
So what's on the website today is corrected. So,
okay,
yeah, no. Also, Mr. Chairman, one of the extension requests needs to be added by a 2/3 vote. Did you want to do that now, or you want to do it at the end?
Which is that?
Allison Pennsylvania, her request came in late yesterday. So did you, we could do it when we get to the extension request, but did you want to add it by 2/3 votes now?
Okay. Yeah, you're coming through a little fuzzy for me. Did everybody catch that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think the most,
Do you need me to repeat my request?
yes,
My
please.
question. Okay, so there was an extension request that came in late yesterday. Did you want, that needs to be added by 2/3 votes? Do you want to do that now, or do you want?
Let's add the, add that to the, that request down in the new business. And we can do that now.
I'll make a motion to add that.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think the most important thing is to swear in our new board member at this point. If you wish to could give us a very brief thumbnail of your background, Stacy?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Stacy Farber. I'm a principal at UHY. And I started out in public accounting a long time ago. That's how I knew John. And then I left public accounting for about 7 years. I became a CFO for one of my former clients, kind of changed around a little bit in private. And then back in 2020, decided it was time to get back into public. I missed it, missed the clients, missed the work. And so here I am. And I'm very excited to be on the board.
Very good. And we're very excited to have you and have a more complete board with better, larger range of experience. Let's see, I believe, Martha, you'll be swearing Stacy in as an
Yes.
officer of the court?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Stacy, welcome to the board. It's an experience that I think you will find rewarding, and it's a very important board with important work. So we're glad to have you here today. Could you raise your right hand, please? Stacy Farber, do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, including Chapter 389 of the Connecticut General Statutes, your duties as a member of the Connecticut State Board of Accountancy to the best of your abilities, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you and welcome to the board, Stacy. You
Thank
can
you.
now have the dubious privilege of voting. Going back and forth between documents, of course, I skipped over the investigation division. Are you going to handle that, Kat?
Oh, no, there's nothing. See, if you see the heading, I think that's a new format. They put the heading,
Okay.
but since there's nothing, no bulleted items. underneath
Very
that,
good.
That means I don't have anything to report to you this
Good.
time.
Okay, old business. The regulations 2280-25 amendment.
So I sent the board the marked up document. Did you have questions? Do you want me to give a broad overview? Or do you, it is somewhat extensive, so I didn't know what to save time, I didn't know what you like.
Well, could you do it just a shorty for Stacy's benefit?
I sent Stacy a document also.
Okay,
so-
very good.
But yeah, I would be happy to. Marcia, did you have a question?
I just had a basic question that if you were going from registered to licensed, would this apply that, because it talks about if you've used CPA and not, and if you're registered, you have used CPA. That's what I just didn't know if this would apply to that situation.
That's a good catch. In fact, I was going to go over that. And I think it needs to be revised to capture that situation, but you are correct. I think it needs to be revised. Capture that if you do have a CPA registration, you can actually use the title. So maybe we'll add something like in violation of law or something like that, to capture situations like that. But so, you know, you have the document, you should have the document in front of you. If you don't, please let me know. But basically, there were just some minor reorganizations of the regulation, you know, several provisions were moved from one place to another just for cohesiveness. There were a few substantive amendments. First of all, we deleted any language that indicated that a license that has lapsed within 5 years may be reinstated. As you know, this regulation 20-280-25 is inconsistent with the statute 21A-4 in several places, and this is one of them. The statute 21A-4 is a general provision that applies to all licenses regulated by DCP, so it's not just a CPA. And that section, that statute talks about, you know, license lapses, reinstatement, late fees, everything. So that specifically states that a person that has a license that lapsed more than 3 years would have to apply for a new license. And so in this amendment, we updated this regulation to be consistent with that statute. So at any time, if you want to, you know, chime in, please do. I'm just going to run through real quick to, you know, not take up time. The second that we did was DCP has had a long-standing policy of providing a 90-day grace period for a person to renew their license. And so we added that language in here to make that clear. So basically what it means is you have 90 days after the expiration to renew. So we will accept the renewal license up to 90 days. After that, you would have to apply for a reinstatement. And then, so another thing has to do with CPEs. As you know, every licensee has to complete 40 CPEs per year. And those who perform audit or signs financial statements would have to do 8 credits in the audit area out of the 40. And in your November 2021 meeting, you voted to, you voted to disallow the carrying over of the audit credits to the following year. So we have got a lot of questions people ask, you know, so I can carry 20 extra CPEs over to the following year. Can I carry over my audit, you know, credits? And the board at the time voted no. You reasoned that, you know, 8 credits per year is not a burden, and that CPAs should be on top of their game, so they would have to, you know, just take new audit credits. So basically, you can still carry over 20. You just can't count any of those toward your 8 audit credits. So we put that into the regs to promulgate that officially. So the main thing with reinstatement, with the amendment, has to do with you know, reinstatement. So basically, we made it clear that if your license has lapsed less than 90 days, you can renew. If it's lapsed more than 90 days, you have to apply for reinstatement. If it has lapsed 3 years or more, then you would have to apply for new license. If you apply for reinstatement, there are 3 different scenarios. First, if during the lapse period, if you did not practice accountancy or use the CPA, the title CPA, then you would be required to pay the reinstatement fee, which is currently $565, which is the same as the renewal fee. And you have to show completion of 40 CPE credits within the past 12 months. So this has been long-standing practice, and it's going to stay that way. If during the second scenario, if during this lapse period you practice accountancy with a lapse license, then you would be required to pay all back licensing, $565 per year, and a late fee. And the late fees, and this is what you voted on in March. The late fees would be $150 for the first 3 months, and then $50 per month for each additional month during the first year. So if you lapse for a whole year, it would come to $600. And if you lapse, you know, more than a year, but less than 3 years, then the late fee would be $100 per month during the second and third lapse year. And this is what you voted on in March, and you're finally putting it in the reg. And then you would have to show 40 CPE credits for last year, and this is required by the statute 21-280. 281B, so it's in there. The third scenario is somewhere in between. So let's say during the last year, the person did not practice accountancy, but used the title CPA. We got some cases where they forgot to, update their website or their email address or something, but they really didn't practice accountancy. They didn't really need the license. In those cases, we're proposing the person would have to pay all back license fees, so it'd be $565 per year, and late fees. But the late fees is less. The late fees will be 10% of all back license fees. And that 10% is equal to the amount prescribed in 21A-4 in the statute. So, and the person would also have to show 40 CPE credits within the past 12 months. So not for every year, but just for the past 12 months. And then if your license lasts more than 3 years. So basically, that's the gist of it. I know I went fast. So.
Yeah, you're cutting out in and out for me, but if everybody else heard you, I think that's fine.
Just at the end, I think she cut out for everybody.
I'm
Oh.
so sorry. You should have. I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's just Zoom. I try to use the headphones.
Well,
I heard everything.
good. Is there any action that we have to take on that, or is that information?
Just information. If you have comments, if you have input, I'd be happy. We'd be happy to work with the board before we, go down the regulation process.
Okay.
I guess I had one question, John, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I understood the changes and they made sense to me in general. I think but stepping back from it is like we're trying to make our regulations for the CPA license consistent, or as much as they can be consistent with the overall regulations for all professions in Connecticut. That's the gist of what we're trying to do in this specific case?
Somewhat. I'd say somewhat because, as you know, statutes trump regulations. So when there's the inconsistency there, we would have to update our regulations to be consistent with the statute. So yes, in that way, but the board does have some latitude to vote on late fees, for example. So, and the board voted on the audit credits. So those cases, it was just board's vote. It was never promulgated into the regulation. So we just wanted to, put it into regulations.
Okay, and I see that, and this is like it's dealing with the reinstatement issue, I guess specifically. There's a lot on that. Are there other areas of the regulations versus the statutes that need to be updated in the future, or this is?
I think so. I think so. It's just a lot of work. We can only, as the chairman can tell you, we it takes a long time. We can do one time at a, one little thing at a time, as much as we can.
Okay, that's helpful background for me being new to the board. So thank you.
Okay. Before we go on to the next, I believe, and I may be. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
Pat, I just had a question. Like, if it's lapsed for over 3 years, they just go through a new license renewal application. But what happens, if they've been practicing as a CPA during that entire time or whatever? Like, is there some kind of a catch-all for that, I guess? Because it seems like what you have here is very, I don't know. I mean, you've kind of prescribed what all of the penalties and fines and everything else are, but it just seems like there could be people with lapsed licenses. I mean, we had it earlier in the year with one of the cases we had where people, hadn't had a license for 10 years or something like that. Do you incorporate that in some way with regards to what the penalties and so forth are, or?
No, we're not putting in the regs, but what's not stated in the regs that we are still doing, which is taking enforcement actions in most cases. So if you look at I think the subsection A, it talks about when you apply for reinstatement, you have to provide all this documentation. That's where we go case by case and look at the documentation to see if an enforcement case should be opened. And that's, alongside with the reinstatement. This does not say that, you're in the clear. It just basically, yes, you're being reinstated with these fees, but at the same time, we don't need to say that we will take enforcement action, even though we will.
So
Does
is there
that
going to
answer
be
your
some
question?
distinction, like, I mean, because this is saying they basically have to file a new license application. So is the license application going to somehow be modified to indicate the person is in fact reinstating a license? I can't recall if it's even on.
I'm not sure how it
Okay,
actually, in terms of the new license, I'm not even sure if the same number. I believe it's a different number, like your license number, but we haven't had any cases like this yet. But I think we've had it in other areas, but not in accounting. So I can look into it more, but I can assure you enforcement actions will be, looked at, like pursued. And it's not like, you practice without license for years and then you just apply for a new license. No, when we issue a new license, we look into the application, the history and everything.
so somehow in the process, you'll know that this person was previously licensed with the board. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And in those enforcement cases, that's where we would go to the board on, case by case with facts, what do you think the fee should be? What should the sanction be? It's just too vast of an area to really put in, regulations. This
Okay.
is just the procedure to reinstate.
All right, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to facilitated board access, I can't remember. I don't know whether we've introduced Shamika, who's our support from DCP, and I couldn't remember whether she came in last meeting, but I don't think so. I think you came in between the last. And welcome you here. And
thank you.
Yes, she presented some requests last time.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I thought.
that's okay. Facilitated board access.
So very quickly, just to let you know, last time the board asked us to get access, and I did. I looked into it, and good to know we've had access for a long time. We have an account, we have, credentials, so we will for years now. So we've always had access. So we will look into using it more.
Oh, interesting. Because I think what AICPA or NASB, whatever, thought that we did not.
Yeah, no, I tried to sign up and they said, yeah, you've had, password and usernames for years.
It was
Good.
Mike Salakian from the state, the CTCPA that was asking about that. So they're
Good.
looking for us to do something with it.
Okay, well, now we do. And always have. Okay. New business, and I think this next one's going to, I'm not sure we're going to
Can we
make
just go back
progress
to the FSBA? The state has had access to it, but we are not aware of any time when they've actually gone in, reviewed the filings to ensure that people are registered, et cetera. So I think that was Mike's greatest concern, because Frank had come to us years ago for training. And Kat, you came in once to the society with Frank for that. But while we have the access to it, it was not used. And so, Kat, I believe you just went through a couple of sessions with Beth Thorenson to get a feel for the system.
Right. So yes, everything you said is correct. We've had access, we have not used it. So I'm going to definitely look into using it more, including getting training and, sign up the back end to see what we're reviewing, what we're not, and then using it more. Definitely.
Yeah. Could we talk at some time at your convenience on how that works and go through it?
To Bonnie or me?
No, you Kat.
Yes, of course, of course.
Because the access is at your level.
Yes, definitely. Why don't we can do that next time. at the
This
next
also
meeting.
relates with findings of peer reviews, correct, Bonnie? Or just registration?
It's peer review, I believe.
Excuse me?
Peer review
Yeah,
report.
peer review. Yeah, because that peer review was something that was covered at some length in one of the sections at the NASBA annual meeting is dealing with follow-up and oversight of peer review. And I'll talk about that later. So. Okay. Guess I gotta move down here. There we go. Nope. Drives me nuts. Okay, new business, internship eligibility for education experience, which we tabled from the September 6th meeting. I'm not sure that we're ready to move on that. From the blank faces, it looks like we're not.
We didn't hear what the request was for that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That was not my item, so I don't know anything about, it being on this agenda. As you recall, last meeting, I had put it on because we had a request from somebody and
Yeah.
that worked out also.
Well, that's difficult because a lot of internships get approved by the universities and accepted
Right.
for academic credit. And I believe we accept that. And for people's, 150 hours?
I don't think we do.
And I don't think that, I think there was a question at some point where if there's any way other than, for example, say through UConn or CCSU, that could be done and what the requirements were. So not really having enough background, maybe I'll take that up to see what I can find out before the next meeting. Okay, UA model rule revisions.
I sent the board some bullets, but I'm sure as board members, the NASBA sent all the board members what they're looking for, the same email.
You're cutting out, Kat.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I looked at the regulations, the Connecticut regulations, and I've made a few bullets of the differences. If you can't hear me, then
Hello,
Carla?
this is Carla. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yes.
Okay, I think what I have noticed is if Kat holds her head completely still, it doesn't cut out. So I know that's hard to do because I'm, moving my head while I'm talking, but I think that might help a little bit.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So as board members, I think NASBA sent you all this letter, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted, so I went through this regulation, and the differences that I saw was that, the first one was the rule 5.7 subsection A1, which is the rolling 18-month period. As you know, a candidate has to pass all 4 exams within a rolling 18-month period. In the past, we've always used the date of the exams, but they're proposing to use the date of the first passing scores released as the starting date, and then the end period would be the date of the final test section. So the Connecticut regulations talks about the 18-month period starts on the date of the first exam, and it's silent on the ending date. But in practice, we've always used the date of the exam. So that's the difference. I saw.
Yeah, and then that was covered in the annual meeting too. They're very strongly supportive, and I think we should be too, making that change, because it's been very difficult during these last couple of years because of the amount of time that sometime expires between when somebody even learns of when the first pass and the starting date. By the way, we're probably going to see some more things coming down the road on that. So that is going to be maybe a moving target for a while with the change in CPA evolution. But now that's something that would have to be done by what, legislation or excuse me,
No.
regulation,
Yeah, regulation.
which means we've got a long time period anyway.
Yes, to get it. Yes, to get it consistent, to get it promulgated. But right now, they're just proposing that. So NASPA is looking for comments.
Yeah.
So if the board, you would have to appoint someone to write to them if you have any comments.
Yeah, I think that's almost certain to go through, along with some other related things. So I think maybe we should just tee it up and know that it's probably coming, because when's our cutoff for having to submit a regulation?
Connecticut regulations has no cutoff dates, basically.
Okay, but it still has the 6 month review period.
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't know about specifically the 6 months. I haven't looked at that for in a while, but I do know that the process has multiple dates in it.
Yeah.
And
For
that's,
our new members, Connecticut regulations usually have to go through a review process, and the people that are queued up to be able to review it and then ask questions if they have any have, I believe, 6 months to do it, or have had 6 months to do it. And it's not done everybody at the same time. It's done one after another. So regulation changes can move out to as long as 2.5 years. But we did experience a lot faster turnaround during the pandemic. Perhaps because people had more time to focus on it, or just because the system's gotten tweaked up at the legislative level. So there's no, what you're saying is there's no action required here.
Not to DCP. Again,
Okay.
NASPA is looking for comments by December 12th, I believe.
Well, if anybody has any thoughts on that, you need not speak now or forever hold your peace. You can think about it and bring it up at the next meeting. I sense pretty strong support.
Yeah, well,
Give
they
a
all
little-
make sense, John.
It
seems
just
to me.
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah,
The second point is, it talks about exam credits may be extended. The model rule suggests that by reason or circumstances beyond the candidate's control. That's very different from our regulations. We may do it for reason of health, military, or what we call good cause. Even though this regulation talks about hardship, but it has been working well. So if you think about it, some of those are not beyond the candidate's control. So it's, some things that you can think about.
Any comments? Concerns?
just Could I make
You
a comment?
certainly may, but you've
Thank-
always got an open mic here.
Not that I- when I was struggling earlier. I don't know if I didn't see any of you at the NASBA meeting a couple of weeks ago, but during that meeting, throughout the entire 3 days, they kept on stressing that they are really trying to make all these changes uniform across the country. They did it in a manner I've never heard them do before, but for many of the reasons that you have mentioned. I had a conversation with one of the gentlemen who's their legislative person during the conference, and he indicated that they are watching us because they're concerned about how long it takes in Connecticut to get the regs passed if we need anything. They also said they're looking at making a number of changes moving forward, but they're not going to do anything until after CPA evolution is fully adopted, because they want to take a closer look at permanently changing the 18-month rule. So right now, the message that they sent out during the conference, where there were two things in particular, and Kat touched on both of them. One had to do with when you actually count your days start running, and they want that to be with the score date. And they felt that was extremely important. And then the second thing was giving that additional 18 months for anybody that was halfway done, or had part of the tests completed during this period and then had to finish it under the new exam. So I just want to stress that that's their goal, to try to have it across the country. That actually works much better for us in the sense of with CPA mobility and all the rules regarding being substantially similar, et cetera. And we're looking to actually get firm mobility adopted this year. So that would just raise those stakes even higher. We're not the only one that doesn't have firm mobility, but as we were with many things, we're one of a few states that hasn't adopted it yet. So I just throw that out there because with these changes, we really are trying to make sure that we're staying with the pack as we move forward. And that is the NASBA's goal too. It's NASBA's goal too, that we try to all move at once and get it all done so we've got uniformity. I don't remember them stressing that so strongly in the past. It was a big issue this year.
I did attend, but virtually, because we're out in the Bay Area. Great grandma sitting, and she's immune impaired, and for me to go down to a big conference in San Diego and come back was not a good idea. But you do get a feel for, and I did notice, by the way, that you were, in your comment about the materials, was one of the few people who made access to the chat function. But you do get a feel for how different it is to follow a conference with that much data virtually, going back and forth between materials that you can barely read and some of which you don't have because they're not distributed until after, and still not distributed, by the way. They go and review them to see whether there's things that should perhaps not be distributed. But it does make a big difference to be able to be there. Zoom was wonderful for the pandemic, but it just ain't it ain't a permanent solution for everything. So I'm hoping that at some point we'll be able to bring the board back individually. Apologies for those of you in Fairfield County, but we usually have a video or a phone link for those who can't make the due to scheduling from Fairfield. Okay. By the way, looking at the charts that they did show on being up to speed on regulations, we were no longer outlier, and so that is a very good feeling that we're basically up to speed on most of the accountancy regulations. Any further comments, or can we move on to CPA exam extension requests?
So John, is there any reason we wouldn't start the process on this regulation stuff, since we know it takes so long? I mean, what's the?
We can. Yeah, we can do that certainly on the 18 months at this period.
So
Uh,
did you want, is the board consensus to adopt all their proposals? I mean, I can, if that is, I can look into drafting something.
I would, well, I would consider the excuse me, the start date of the 18-month period and inserting specifically, you know, the end period. If anybody has any thoughts on how much more we might do, Carla?
Yeah, I think Peter has a good idea, to like, why don't we go ahead and get started? My only issue way back in the distant past, I worked in the legislative commissioner's office in the state legislature. And my fear, which maybe Kat or Bonnie might know something about, is that we'll take the language that we've got right now, start down the path to get the regulations changed, and then NASBA will change something again, and then we'll have to start all over again with our Connecticut regulations. So that's my only, you know, it's a little bit of a concern. That probably won't happen, but I think we need to be cognizant that it might be a possibility.
I think Carla raises a good point. I remember working on regs for the Department of Labor years ago, and by the time they made it to the Reg Review Committee, the Federal Department of Labor had changed their rules yet again. My recommendation would be you don't necessarily have to mirror it and get what the UAA has in it, essentially. To be a little bit vaguer, our statutes, and I think NASBA pointed this out at 2 different meetings in the past, we tend to be a bit more specific than most states. Like when we had to change the names of the sections of the test we actually had in our regulations before, where most states didn't. Specific classes, some states have some of those, but they don't itemize each one of those in the regs. So I'd say as you're looking at making the modifications, we want to be as close to the model act as we can. But if they're getting really detailed in an area where there is possibility of change, to have it be a bit more vague, where the state board of accountancy can set a rule or a policy, versus having to go back and either change the statute or change the regs. Regs are harder to change than statutes are, as far as I'm concerned. You can get the statute changed in 1 year.
Absolutely.
Multiple years for and that's just my experience. You're right, it was much quicker, John, this past time around, but the regulatory process is so frustrating simply because you hurry up and wait while they literally sit on someone's desk while they're doing other things for months.
Yeah, you're right. We've been through regs where, you know, 5 locus points have taken their 6 months without a single question, a single comment before it could be adopted. I guess getting that changed is probably tilting windmills at this time. So we have 2 options as I see it. We could, you know, get it started with the wording as is, or we could delegate to a couple of members to work on it to see if it can't get less specific and more flexible. Yes or no? We'd have to have your assistance on that, Kat, because we're going to get into verbiage. Those are my thoughts. Any comments?
Well, I was just going to say, I think number 2 is really important as well if we don't have that language, because I know, you know, for our firm, we did have somebody in the military here. So I think it's important granting that extension for those types of, you know, scenarios where it's out of the candidate's control and they get deployed or, you know, whatever the case may be. Excuse me.
Most states interpret that far more liberally than what it sounds like many people are looking at here with the language in terms of the exceptions. Most states do good cause. So
We have accepted military service consistently. And as a former Navy guy, I'm not going to stand in the way. But yeah, we could move ahead with that. We could move ahead with clarifying the 100 or the 18 months and the start date.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to help if you're looking for a volunteer.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that also. That would hold us off until when? January, right? When's our next meeting?
Yes, January.
Unless we called a special meeting. Unless, Peter, you just want to put it all up. I'll leave that up for anybody who wants to make a move here. Otherwise, we'll get a subcommittee here and report.
I mean, it just seems like everybody is pretty much in agreement on the wording or whatever. I don't know that anybody has any real.
Well, this is a regulation change. It's going to take a long time anyway. So
No,
we
that's
could-
what I mean.
we
I
could-
guess.
We could
like, I
start
don't
it,
think
we could
anybody's
start it
objecting.
forward. We could start it forward and start the clock. And then if we find some way that we might want to modify it to make it less specific, I'm
You
sure
can-
it won't have moved very far.
well, just remember during the public hearing process, when it gets to that point, and it takes forever to get there, you can recommend any modifications you want at all. And did that with the last set of regs that went through, and that's how we got the additional changes we wanted so rapidly. We piggybacked them on the set of regs that was working their way through the process. You can have these start right now under the, if you just took the exact wording from the UAA, you can have it begin the process and you can look at it, see if there's something that you think is too spelled out too much, it's too much, it's delineated too much. And then at that hearing, either testify orally if we're going to do that, or testify via writing and just share that with them. And those changes can be made at that time by the DCP attorney who's working on the regs and moving them through the process. I thought he was very good last time at listening to what the board had to say, because I remember hearing John in one of the meetings, and then also with NASBA concerns there. And they modified them without any complaint. They agreed and just sent them along. So you can start the process now and take advantage of the public comment period to modify them.
Well, Peter, you want to make a motion to start the process?
Sure, I'll make the
With-
motion to start the
With
process.
the
on
modifications
changing the reg.
as written, and then we can take a look at it and see whether there's something that we'd want to fiddle with when it gets at the end of the pipeline.
So I'll make that motion.
Second,
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, CPMA exam extension requests. Just a note for you, Stacy, that I think 4 out of 5 of these, and there's one addition, which have medical things. When there is something that might come under HIPAA or any other confidentiality, we provide the stuff to the board members, and I don't know whether as an unsworn in, you probably wouldn't have gotten those.
I think Shamika sent me
Yeah,
most
Wonderful.
of them.
Thank you, Shamika.
you're
So
welcome.
you're set. You can vote. Okay. First,
Okay, good morning, everyone. First up, we have Balbana Bosi. She's requesting an extension for her FAR credit that will expire December 30th of this year due to, I'd say, good cause / medical reasons. I sent you guys a copy of her daughter's medical records where she broke her arm. So she says that she needs to provide 24-hour care for her daughter for the next couple of months. So she's looking for an extension for the FAR credit through March 30th of 2023.
Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up, we have Hillary Pride. She's asking for an extension due to medical reasons. I sent the doctor's note ahead of time. She is requesting an extension for her BEC, which expired December 31st of 2021. And she's asking for an extension through December 31st, 2023.
So that was my question. Have we ever given a 2-year extension when we only have an 18-month to begin with?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't remember that, but
Yeah, seems like the length is a bit excessive.
Yeah.
So I think we normally have done 3 months or less. And we're almost a year out now. So for that reason, I would make a motion to deny.
Carla, were you saying something?
actually, I was just coughing, but
Oh,
I was thinking about saying something, so I will. Called on me. I think if we deny, okay, the reason that we're talking about denying is the long duration of the requested extension, but in the way it might be received by the applicant is that we just said no. So I wonder if there's some intermediate strategy to adopt to let them know that it was an unusually long request period, rather than just completely discourage a person and say, well, they're going to say no.
So
I mean, on their application, it says she passed the exam in September of 2019. So it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long
Yeah,
time.
So
Right.
I can amend the motion since none of you seconded it, that and make a motion to approve a 9-month extension to September for medical reasons to September of 2022. I don't even think
23.
we've ever done a year because it expired in 21. So if we wanted to approve an extension for our normal time, which 9 months is pretty long for us.
Yeah.
I mean, if it doesn't sound like there were any other sections taken or passed. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
did you have an
I just
amendment
think
on the
we
table?
need to give her some guidance on how long she's got. 18 months is too long. Marcia's saying 9 months. I'm fine with 9 months, but maybe others want a shorter period.
Danny's got an idea.
No, I'm fine with 9 months.
But
I
if
was
we
actually
say
fine-
9 months, that already passed as well.
Yeah,
So
it's-
what does that really do
Mm.
for?
It does nothing, but it
Right.
acknowledges that we accept the medical condition that, but doesn't do anything.
could you
So
do 12, could you do 12/31/22? I know it's probably too long, but at least it's a date that's in the future. Is that a compromise? Or is that I don't know all the background that you guys have on this, but is that a possibility?
does that, I'm kind of in favor of that, but I'm not sure. Does that help at all? 12/31 is not very far from now. Does that allow her to do anything with it?
Yeah, I mean, she'd have to study and take the other 3 parts and pass them in the next 6 weeks. I mean, I don't
Totally
know.
impossible with the system that's out there now.
And she did come to us 11 months after it expired.
Right,
not us that's being slow.
right.
What was the date that she's requesting?
December
December
31st, 2023.
Okay, so what if it were March 31, 2023? Does that allow her to possibly do this in that time frame?
It's still a year and a quarter, and we've never given anyone a year and a quarter that other than in COVID times with the blanket extensions.
Yeah, oftentimes we get the requests in advance of the expiration itself, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. She waited almost a year.
I understand that we've never given that, Marcia, but my question, I'm not sure that I heard the beginning of what you said, so you may have addressed, but if it were 3/31/2023, does that allow her to realistically do this stuff?
I mean, if she's trying to get it all done by the end of next year, you would think she's actively studying.
Okay, can somebody just answer the question? Does that realistically allow her to do this? I'm not a CPA, Ms. Farber, so
Okay.
I'm a public member. So sometimes I'm sort of the person who questions things because I don't have your background.
Got it.
I'd like for somebody to just address for me, does that realistically give her the opportunity to do it?
In theory, if she had been studying for multiple parts, she could get those exams scheduled prior to that date. And yeah, I think it's possible. I don't know how realistic it is because we don't know exactly whether she's been studying. It's just been
It basically
quite
gives her
some time.
2 windows to take 3 exams. So she could take
it's
one
unrealistic.
before the end of the year, and then she could take, one, one month next year and one the next month, and presumably be done by March 31st.
She's passed only one part, right?
That's
Right.
here.
Yes,
So
which is
she
already
waited for-
lost.
She waited till all possibility of doing the other 3 parts. I mean, her alternative is to retake the first part.
So I would make a motion to extend 3/31/2023.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in fa-
Just why I'll vote no is I don't like the precedent of a year and a quarter when it's a year and a half already, that if someone else asks us for a year and a quarter. So that's why I'll be voting no. That's my discussion.
All in favor, aye?
aye.
Say aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I didn't get a good count there. Did it pass?
It did pass.
It did pass. Okay, the motion passes.
So she's approved through March of 2023?
Yes.
Okay, want to make sure.
See her again.
If I were to wager, I'd say it ain't gonna happen.
I just, John, I just muttered to myself, we'll see her again asking for another extension, but
Okay,
Okay,
Terry Grossman?
well, I have one more extension, which is the one that we just added. So I
Oh,
don't know if you guys wanted me to do the extension,
yeah,
the
let's-
exams first and
okay,
then
let's do
the
that one.
waivers. Okay, so background on Allison Kilbana. She sent a request. She requested on April 25th, on April 25th of 2022, she was approved for her NTS for her reg exam through May 31st of 2022. In the January board, hold on, I'm sorry, I changed my screen. In the January 4th, 2022 board meeting, the board approved to extend her BEC and her audit exam credits through June 30th because of her father's illness. Now she's sending out another request for those 2 credits, which expired on the 30th. Her father has been in and out of the hospital with surgeries. He had the surgery in April and was in the hospital April through May. She's looking for an extension now until the 31st, December 31st of this year. So it's an ongoing sickness that he has, and he's been in and out of the hospital. She said the last time he was in the hospital was just September, but she couldn't find the documentation to send that to me. She did send me the documentation for April of this year when he was in the hospital, though.
For somebody who's been through it, it can be very time consuming. Any comments, thoughts? Further questions on the facts?
Could we put it on hold till she can get the documentation of the September?
Okay, yeah, she says she's been having trouble logging in, so I'll let her know.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that? I don't think so. Well, we'll make it official. If nobody has a thought for a motion to take care of it, Marcia has a motion on the table that we defer till the next meeting.
Well, by the
Until
next
she can-
meeting, it'll be past December 31st.
Oh
So
dear.
we make a
That's
motion
right.
to approve, subject to Shamika getting the documentation of the September hospitalization.
I'll second that. I'll second that
Okay.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you.
So
Now
approved,
we have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
approved through December 31st once she sends in those September documents, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So now Terry Grossman, he's requesting an extension for his 40 CPE hours due to medical reasons. He did not send in any records, but he did send in an explanation in his email. Where he states his wife was sick in July of 2021. He's been in quarantine with her, and then sometime this year he also became sick. So he was also fearful of taking in He was fearful of being exposed to any virus. So he's looking for an extension through December 31st, 2022 to complete his hours.
Couldn't he take him virtually?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, he also said that he's not been feeling well, and it's been difficult to retain anything or to concentrate.
This is CPE and not a CPA exam, which you don't have to concentrate as much. That and I don't think we had any medical backup or any backup that he was out of work for an extended period of time. So I would make a motion to deny, and we could bring it up again if he provides the medical backup and the backup of losing significant work time.
I'll
Do we have a
second that.
second?
Yeah.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Well, didn't he ask just to extend to the end of this year, which is less than 2 months? So I have a question about Marcia's motion. If he provides, we're not gonna meet again until the date is passed that he requested the extension for.
This
So-
isn't for his exam. This is for
Right.
getting out of the penalty, and the penalty is, I think, 625 if he
Mhm.
gets it done by December 31st. So I would assume he's going to try to do it anyway.
Right.
Then we would just, if he provides all that, not have a penalty in January. If he doesn't take the stuff, I think that there's worse consequences than
Right.
the cash.
I just wanted to point out that he stated he tested positive for COVID in August, which is after the CPE deadline.
Doesn't help the argument.
No, it doesn't. So are you proposing to modify the motion, Carla?
No, I just
Okay.
needed an explanation. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion. We did have a second, correct?
We did.
Okay, so unless there's any further discussion, we can vote on the motion.
Can you
Well,
repeat the motion, please?
the motion was to deny pending medical backup and documentation that he was out of work for an extended period of time because of it. But with the clarification that it was in August after the deadline's already passed, do we want to change the motion?
Yes.
All right, so should we vote this one down and then do a new motion?
We can just go on to modify the motion.
I'll make a motion to modify it to deny.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Don't
All
the
in
requests
favor?
have to be done before June 30th? I thought that was kind of our policy, was that.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. Are we set to vote or any further
Sure.
questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And the next is Crystal Kiefer.
Yeah. Estelle Kiefer, she is requesting to have a waiver of the $625 fee for credits completed after June 30th, but before December 31st due to medical and good cause. And she sent a letter of explanation that I will read. So she says, Dear Board of Accountancy, I am respectfully requesting a waiver of fee of $625 because reporting on a renewal application, a minimum of 40 hours of CPE, 7 CPE hours were earned after June 30th and on or by December 31st. The reason for my request is good cause. I have been practicing as a CPA for over 30 years, first at Deloitte and now as a sole practitioner, and have always been in good standing. I have never been late in the past with earning my CPE hours. I know how important continuing education is, and the classes I have taken have helped me so much in tax preparation and dealing with clients. This past spring and summer have been extremely demanding on my time and energy. My client practice is extra busy as new clients required amended returns due to errors made by previous tax preparers, and 2 clients have been extra challenging due to foreign income and foreign reporting. Then she discusses about a medical condition that she also has. She also states, my mother is aging and she still needs assistance in selling her home and looking for a place to live. I have been rebuilding my house with my partner as the cost of labor and materials necessitates we do most of the work ourselves rather than hiring subcontractors. My daughter, who lives in Ohio with my grandson, she had a medical condition as well, and the time was needed with her. Not to mention, my aunt had COVID and was on her deathbed. Each factor on their own was enough to send me into overload. Combining all of them was too much and something had to give. Unfortunately, with my continuing education, please accept this request, waiver of fee with my deepest regrets. I appreciate your consideration. Sincerely, Christelle Kiefer.
So you have enough time to rebuild your house, and your medical condition isn't bad enough that you can't do that, but you can't take CP. I don't think the medical condition seems to be slowing her down, so I'll make a motion to deny.
Does anybody wish to second that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Alternative motions, discussion, questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. One thing I just want to do very briefly, we're out of motions. One, new business, entertain. Any other thing anybody would like to speak of?
Oh, sorry.
Chairman, we have an additional request. I don't know why it's in its own category.
Oh,
but
I'm
it should
sorry.
be-
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's at the bottom of the page, so it's easy to miss. This person, I don't know why it's in a different category on the agenda. It should just be under Sam. It's Jeremy Potatoes.
Okay, this.
All of these, just to point out, dates are in the future. I think he's super organized, but he's requesting to extend his 3 credits.
You're cutting out.
And they have not been expired yet. The credits he's asking for have not expired yet. The FAR is expiring in January 23. It's actually very unclear. The date that he's requesting for is February 23rd, 2023. And he said that he signed up to take his last section of the VEC on October 1st, intentionally knowing that he would receive his score on October 11th. And he said that would leave him enough time to have 4 more tries before his first credit expired if he did not pass it. However, NASBA made a mistake in sending the score release date. And so his scores will not be released until November 8th and potentially November 15th. So that would not leave him enough time to study, or I have 2 or 3 more attempts. So he's asking for an extension, I guess, of the first, which is the first thing that would expire on January 19th, 2023. And so I did reach out to NASBA and I did confirm that the AICPA did make an error on their chart of the date release. So the cutoff date should have been September 30th, which on the chart would show that the score release would be October 8th. But that was an error. And on the last day, AICPA sent out an amended, notice to say that if you took it on October 1st, the score release date is actually November 8th. And then they even said that they're not sure that, the date is not absolute. It could be later. So, so I did confirm that was the case. But anyway, so his FAR, as I said, it does not expire until January 19th. And he's asking for an extension of that to February 23rd of 2023.
So there's no medical reason or any other reason other than anticipating failure?
Yes, correct.
I mean, he should know today he's got plenty of time to study.
Correct. Also, I would note that the board will meet before in January. So if he failed, he could request and you could take it up at the January meeting too. It's unusual for us to get a request for all dates in the future like this.
Yeah, it seems to me that, he's got some sort of case because he was deferred by something that wasn't his fault, but yeah, he's just, I mean, it just seems inappropriate at this point. As somebody said, he's just basically
Anticipating failure. I like that
anticipating.
comment.
I'll make a motion to not address. How's that instead of deny that, not
Table.
address, and he can come back in January with causes.
Yeah.
We have a motion, a second. Any comments, discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Just for Bud and Stacy, just to let you know that Marcia's the official motion crafter.
Seems that way.
I have to show up every meeting, otherwise nothing gets done. We have a lot of seconders, but no firsters.
Good one.
Okay. Before I get into just a couple of comments, does anybody have any new business? Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments. I'd sort of put together a very brief Mark Aronowitz report on the annual meeting. For those that remember Mark, before he had to resign the board because he became a Florida resident as a snowbird, and he did escape Ian. He's in Boca Raton, which just got rain. He used to, when he went to the meeting, he came down with very detailed reports, which I could not possibly match. But just, and Bonnie could probably add, because you were there in person, correct, Bonnie? But
Sorry, yes, I was finding my iPad. Yes, I was there in person.
okay, it makes a big difference, but there was a lot of emphasis on day one about the talent pipeline and new initiatives regarding getting more people interested in the profession and reaching out to various diverse communities. Attention was played on the leaky funnel, that our funnel goes down, has been going down recently from, you start with the number of people that have expressed some interest in accountancy, and then you watch them drop out through college before licensure. And there is as everybody that is still active knows, that there is a significant problem with supply. And part of it was just because our reputation, after all, who plays us in the movies but Rick Moranis?
Oh, yeah.
And although we may be ahead of actuaries, but they went through a lot of solutions, a lot which depended on social media and significant investments in digital outreach and influencers. It might be my generation. I admit I wasn't tremendously persuaded. Reports from the NASBA and AACPA chairs, which were pretty decent roundups. There was a lengthy discussion of UAA model 5.7, which changes the time frame and the rolling 18-month period. USAA Section 18 confidential communications, which basically the discussion led to revisions to the Accountancy Act coming, but not here. Concerns with the principal place of business rules, given mobility and virtual working, and combined with the licensure issues, where is somebody and where is a principal place of business as more people are working virtually more. And work experience required to sign audit reports, certain examination reports. We've discussed that before. It's still in the discussion page everywhere. There's continuing concern about related barriers to practice in and out and the anti-regulatory environment. A motion really that there's a lot of organizations out there that basically want to essentially eliminate virtually all regulation, and a lot of it does not consider protection of the republic, of the public, I should say, not the republic. But I will note very quickly, though, when in the past, when they've gone down checklists as to whose boards operate in a way that passes and doesn't really have a whole lot of concerns with the fallout of North Carolina, tooth whitening, et cetera, Connecticut always scores very highly on that. Let's see. Updates on mobility, reciprocity, discussions of some significant discussion on board member conflicts of interest and ex parte communications, bias, both actual and parents. One of the issues here is a lot of these did not have the slides in the packages. So we had to, us virtual people had to kind of look at it. And there was some comments about releasing the slides later after they were reviewed. And that was when Bonnie got up on chat and said, well, you know, when? Please kind of hurry that up. They have not been out yet. And I will try to go through and print out, because everything's password protected, significant slides that I have to pass along. But it's, you know, it's something that really is needed. Tuesday was mostly committee discussions and discussion of CPA evolution. And Wednesday, part of the most interesting time, which I don't have the slides for necessarily, I have some of them for, but they're not that informative, and I hope we get better from, is the various lawsuits, SEC disciplinary and PCAOB disciplinary reports and the lessons learned. And I will sort through the slides and print out those that are useful after I return, because I don't have the access here. By the way, there were two things that were mentioned. I guess the Department of Labor is getting ready to release findings from its last go around on pension reports. And so we should expect that soon. And let's see. I think that's about it. I guess there is yet one more scandal out there of firms in various offices cheating on the ethics exam. I don't know whether that affected Connecticut or not. I hope not. But if so, Carla and Kat may have to swing into action again.
Oh, God.
And discussion of audit risk mitigation, which I will get slides sent out. And a wrap-up review with peer review and oversight thereof. Now, this is something we've talked about in the past, but there were two things. We don't really have a peer review oversight function of the board. And there were two reasons for that. One, we really don't have the resources to do it. It's tough enough to get the resources to actually perform the peer reviews and get a good cadre. And to get the volunteers to do that, because we don't have a budget for that, would be extremely difficult. Two, Connecticut was going through a process of having to reorient it, and it seemed to be going very well and has seemed to go very well. And at this point, the decision on the board was there's really no need for that, but that is in Connecticut, certainly at this point, except perhaps we should be reviewing, you know, the board access stuff a little more. But it does seem to be, there are some significant problems around the country. And that was about all I could do from a remote. I would like everybody to consider whether, I don't know what the rules are with the state right now, but consider when people would feel it was safe to start meeting in person again. And their thoughts on that, and we can sort of get everybody's opinion in the sometime in the next 60 days. I assume we'll do the next one virtually too, but at some point, I think we can test the waters and start thinking. I find them much more effective as long as we have an option for those people that can't travel. As you know, if you've got a busy work schedule or other schedule, you know, driving up to Hartford from Stamford or something is difficult. So anybody else have any new business thoughts? Yes, Carla. And,
Well,
and of course, UConn.
Yeah, I just had a question which goes back to the beginning of your summary of what happened, and that has to do with the pipeline. And I know Bonnie was there too, but was there any discussion about trying to have initiatives to work more closely with the educational institutions that grant accounting degrees to try, because I know
Yes,
that the institutions have been having trouble getting majors, so.
yes. That was a significant part. I'll, as soon as I can, there were slides on that, which may be helpful to talk about some of the initiatives. And
Can I just
there was
comment
really
on
one.
that too?
Sure.
Has there been any discussion amongst the board to, 'cause I don't think I'm closer to like new people. We've got, you know, some people that are just coming out of school, interns, all that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing that I see is the education requirements. I personally I feel very strongly that it doesn't really have any impact on becoming a CPA. It wasn't a requirement when I came out of school. And I was talking to one of the other partners here, and he said when he came out, it was either the extra credit hours or the third year of experience. And I just think the extra experience is more valuable than the school credits, because I had an intern here who we had to hire as a paraprofessional because he didn't have the education requirements, and he was taking classes, but he wasn't taking anything in accounting. So it was kind of pointless. He was taking nutrition, and I mean, it's just totally irrelevant classes. I think that's the main reason why the supply has gone down, and people, like, it's so expensive now just to go for undergrad to then add a fifth year. I just think it's cost prohibitive, and I think
You're preaching to the choir here, because I was one of the minority of the board of the Connecticut Society at the time that voted against supporting the 150-hour rule, particularly because people were, you know, we saw the number of recruits go down by like 90% the first year, because that was a great year for the economy, and you could go out, you could either pay for another year, or you could go out and earn money in the meantime. And people were taking option number 2. And then when they were doing it, you know, taking follow-up classes, very often they had nothing to do with accounting.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the 150 hours, and that
Yeah.
has been discussed nonstop. And actually in October, when the AICPA got together for the fall council meeting, along with all of the state societies throughout the country, Sue Coffey did, for the very first time after talking about this for now, I'm in my 6th year at the society, and it's been up every year. Sue Coffey did admit that the extra 30 hours is a barrier, but their response was, and you kind of saw this in some of the stuff that NASBA's talking about, and NASBA taking the same position, is that the 30 hours could be met via internship. So you're going to see another proposal put before you to increase the number of internship hours. I know we talked about, I think it was 9 last time when Dan was on. in whatever month that was, September. But they are looking to propose a 30-hour internship that would replace those 30 hours of credit that you need to get. It would have to be, they're saying, academically rigorous, and it would have to be a lower cost than what college credits cost currently. And there is some work already being done. So for example, EY has already contracted with the university to supply all of their students with that 30 hours of internship, et cetera. And the AICPA is now looking at a university in New Jersey to help them with that. So that's going to pop up all over the place. It's going to keep on coming up. But I would tell you the one that's helping the most in terms of the pipeline issue is the Center for Audit Quality, which I know sounds funny. Why are they in it? But they're very much in it. And that's their big push, is to have more internship hours, not get rid of the 150, but to lower the cost of that 150. The thing that they say is actually the number one, according to a study that AICPA had done, is they say there's two issues. One, accountants love to talk about how hard they work, and kids don't want to work that hard. And it's true. Everyone complains about busy season. Well, everyone has a busy season, and tax people haven't had, they've worked for the last 3 years, or their busy season lasted 3 years. And while that all may be very true, you're not going to attract children into that profession because they want work-life balance. These Gen Zers have no interest in putting in those hours. So there was a lot of discussion about creating greater flexibility to allow for things like that. But they said that's actually probably the number one. The number two is that accounting jobs don't pay as well, starting positions, nearly as well as the other business school majors, especially finance, et cetera.
Yeah.
You might have seen the slide for the, I guess, the social media outreach. It showed the, as people see accountants, with the guy holding his head, sitting behind, working between the stack of books. And then there was the young woman off running in her, designer running gear. And that's what accountancy really is. I don't think that's going to work. But were you behind that, Bud, with the E&Y, that the partnering for the internships is, I always thought, like, on the job experience, sitting next to and working was much more valuable, or a much more rigorous continuing education to keep up with things.
Yeah, I think that's a idea, and EY is pushing. So yeah, I heard that, and some firms too. I thought WC in New Jersey was doing a pilot related to that as well. But there seems to be a trend there to get the last 30 hours through these internships with the firms, which we would be supportive. I'd be supportive.
So there's a bunch of issues out there, and they all can be addressed to better help attract students to it, but none of them are turning anything around overnight. The other thing is that younger people want to work in more diverse atmospheres than what most accounting firms are right now. And so that's why there's a big effort to attract people that the profession hasn't normally attracted on its own, but to make an effort. That's one of the reasons why the Center for Audit Quality is actually has taken their DEI initiative and put it in as part of this pipeline effort. So those are the ones I remember, John. It's been 2 weeks, so it's starting to fade.
Right.
Hey, John.
It's only been 1 week.
And maybe it's a question for you, John, or Bonnie. I don't know. No, just as background, like, who makes the 150-hour requirement? Is that done by the state board, state by state, or is it driven by something else?
That's actually done by statute at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it
I
is.
think, yeah.
But it's
It was
state-
part of the Uniform Accountancy Act. I mean, that could be changed in Connecticut, but then we might have issues with reciprocity for people, practicing elsewhere. I don't know what the implications of that would be. But I think it was state by state.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
Some states have talked about repealing that requirement, but you have to be substantially equivalent, and you've got to rely on regulators to decide that. That's a little bit scary when it comes to your job, your profession. So nobody's ready to repeal it yet. Everyone, I would tell you just about every state, if not every state, would love to repeal it, but it would have to be an effort where it all happened around the same time, because otherwise you're in jeopardy of losing CPA mobility.
It would have to be driven by NASBA, like with the rule changes that they're working on, which it doesn't seem to be on the table.
NASBA and AICPA do not support the rollback of the 150.
Okay.
They have just said it's not a problem, it's not a barrier for 5.5 years. And then literally at Fall Council is the first time Sue Coffey, who is now the president of the public side of AICPA, it's the first time she or Barry Melanson have ever admitted that it could be one of the challenges in getting people to go into the profession.
I just think it makes no sense based on what I see.
Agreed.
I would rather them require 1 or 2 internships as replacement for that, because I think that's more valuable.
Agree.
Is there any
Okay.
concern with the internships that wouldn't be available to everyone? Is that sort of a thing where you have to know people or you have to be the best student in order to get those? Would that be
I think that would be a concern, that you might have to have. A lot of people do get internships through connections, which of course hurts the whole diversity push.
right?
They're really making an effort, and we haven't seen anything in any write-ups on how they're going to go forward with this internship. They do have a stakeholders group working on it, which does include the AAA representing some of the schools. It's got employers in it. It's got the AICPA. It's got NAS, many groups. But what's interesting is that when they say that it has to be their criteria, there's 3 things. It's got to be economically vigorous, I mentioned. The second one that they keep on saying is low cost. And the third is that it has to be, I can't remember what the verb was, but basically it's got to be a program that can fit any size employer. So they don't want only the EYs of the world, the larger big 4s, being able to contract with the university and do that. They want it so that it can go down to the smallest accounting firm. I don't know how they do that, but that is one thing that everybody who's spoken about it, whether it be NASBA or AICPA, they say that constantly. I do know that some state societies are starting to look at, I'm actually up in Boston today because my counterparts and I all get together in New England twice a year. And some of the schools, some of the CEOs are already looking to contract with a school in their state to be that place to get that academically vigorous, low cost and sizable program in place. We don't have any guidelines so to go by it yet. So it's one of those stay tuned a bit.
Well, going in, I was hoping you'd comment, Carla.
Yeah, since I started this whole thing, I mean, obviously the only accounting program I'm intimately familiar with is the UConn School of Business program. But, and I understand that this is my own interpretation, trying to abolish 150-hour statute is going to probably be impossible, especially because of the issues we just discussed, that you really have to do it nationally, and NASBA doesn't seem to have an appetite for that. But there is a way, and I'm just going to have to use UConn as an example because that's the only one I really know intimately. There is a way that you could substitute that 5th year and diminish dramatically the number of discrete courses and replace it with internships. Because just using UConn as an example, they have a very robust internship program throughout the School of Business with a number of different companies. And even what we talked about earlier within the year about travelers and some of the internships they were doing, I think without trying to change the whole statute. You can amend it to facilitate meeting the requirements by paid internships, which may help the pipeline if that were done. But that's going to take a concerted effort by a number of organizations and the institutions of higher ed.
Ouch. Well, yeah, I don't know how you get started on that, but it's a good point. If NASBIS, if they're not going to come along on that, and you've got to have the whole mobility thing and equivalency, that's going to be an issue too. So. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, is there any other items that anybody wants to bring up as new business? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want to say that I like Zoom meetings, that all these organizations are saying, oh, we're back in person. Oh, such a waste of our time to do all that driving so
Well, it's a waste of time to do the driving.
I'm just going to put my vote in to continue Zoom.
I wanted to say that as well. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's a much better use of our time. And I understand there's a problem sometimes with looking at the documents, but if they could be identified in advance, perhaps the Department of Consumer Protection could arrange to have someone displaying those. Would that help?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Also, I just wanted to add that at this point, DCC does not have the capacity to accommodate in-person and Zoom at the same time. We don't have a video we can show others, online. So it's not like we have a conference room where you can show,
No, that all had to be on the phone.
Yes.
So bad.
Okay, well, I guess it's Zoom for the foreseeable future.
Well, we only heard from 3 of us.
Huh?
I mean, I would agree with that, especially during, the January and March meetings.
Well,
I'm busy here, but
I'm counting 3 people from Fairfield, you from the far west, and Carla for Yukon. And Martha is usually down around the courthouse around New Haven, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm around New Haven, Wallingford, so sort of kind of south. But with the Zoom, we used to do phone meetings years ago on the board during January, February, March, sometimes because of tax season, and Zoom is so much better. I mean, being on the phone was very difficult. So I feel like it's works much better these days.
Gotcha.
I'll chime in as one of the Fairfield County residents and say that I missed the drive, but this is much more convenient.
Sometimes the old days I used to find driving back and forth before cell phones was the only time I had any peace and quiet to think and catch up. Once cell phones and hands-free came up, even that disappeared though.
I miss
Okay.
the area in the there that they have Department of Consumer Protection, but that's.
Whoop, you just went. Oop, the sound cut out on you. That might have been my internet. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Of course. And a second.
Second.
Okay, no discussion allowed on motions to adjourn, so all in favor? Opposed?
Next month, I appoint Stacy to be the first motion maker.
It's a thankless job, Stacy. Be careful. Okay, I'll as soon as I can. I just, out in my in-laws' house, I just don't have that much capability, but I'll try to at least print things to PDF. I can't send a 30 meg password protected file to you. So I can't just send the file and the password unless I can, well, Mike, I work that out later. We can do Google or something like that. So until January, or Stacy, you and I may be talking earlier on the other items.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.